blood has done. And that's why John can compare them. And you see, and this is why when challenges comes to you in your life, when you have seen God's power, when you have a testimony, nobody can take it away from you. When you know what God has done, the miracles has done in your life, you can tell the devil, do you know who I am? Do you know what I've been through? You think you're going to intimidate me? Do you know? I have been broke. I have been talked about. I have been gossiped about. I have scandalized my name. Do you? And I'm still standing. I'm still standing. Do you know who I am? And the challenge we have with many of us in the church is that we do not have a testimony of God's power in our lives. And if we don't have a testimony, and let me tell you this, in this life, you are going to reach a point where you need supernatural intervention. As you continue with this life, there will come a point where you need supernatural, where the Panado, the whatever, the Disprin, and all of those things cannot help you. You need a divine intervention. And if you have not seen that or experienced that here in the Lord, you're going to go around the people. The people who are Adventists who during the midweek, they're busy going to see this Sangoma, this prophet there, and whatever. It's because they have not experienced power here. When you have experienced your power here, who can move you? If the Lord is on our side, who can be against us? Who can intimidate you and push you out of the church? Church people can be mean, but when you are grounded, you can be moved. I was talking about the meanness of church people on the social media, and one lady sent me a message. She says a year or two ago, she was diagnosed. She was a person who used to work for herself. She had her own business, whatever, you know. Now, she got diagnosed with cancer. And as a result, she could no longer make, because she was selling things, buying things. Now she could no longer. All her money that she had in savings were going to chemotherapy and so on. And she says, as a result, I couldn't go to church. 3 months not being able to go to church because she says, I couldn't have money for a taxi. She says, I was struggling even for food. Forget about money to go for a taxi. She says, one day, she found some money. Somebody gave her money. She says, I have not been to church for a long time. She decided to come to church. She says, when I got to the entrance, the elder was coming out. And the elder says, yeah, you have backslidden. What's wrong with you? You no longer love the Lord. When are you going to come to church? She says, I was devastated. Here she chose the last few cents to come and fellowship. And at the entrance, she meets a demon who tried to push her back. If you are not grounded, these demons will kick you out. You are going to come up here and make a sermon, and it becomes a joke to them. To try to kick you out. And that's why you need to have an encounter with Jesus. You need to have an experience, the testimony. In John chapter 9, verse 25, the boy who has been born blind. Remember what happened? Jesus put mud in his eyes and said, go and wash, and he was able to see. Then the church leaders come to him and they say to him, who is this person? He tells them what Jesus did. Then they say, no, give glory to God because this man is a sinner. In his response in John 5:25, he says, whether he's a sinner or not, I do not know. But this one thing I know, I was blind, but now I can see. He says, I cannot talk about Christology or eschatology, but I can tell you what I've experienced. I was blind, but now I can see. Oh, yes. And so when you have that encounter, you can't be moved. You can't be shaken because you have got an experience. You see, the issue of religion is not a theoretical debate. It's an experience. I used to be blind, but now I can see. Talk whatever you want, but I'm going to talk of my own experience. What he did when he came down to my level. What he did in my life. How he wanted me. How he changed me. How he took me from hating the church and trying to run away from the church and bring me here to stand in front of you. To stand and not even be paid for it. To go around the world and not be paid for it, but he put your feet right there. Because when you have got an experience, when there is something within you, you see, the issue of evangelism cannot be fabricated. The reason why we don't have many people evangelizing is not because somehow they don't have enough skills, they don't know how to evangelize, they don't have budget. No, it is not about that. Many of us, we just don't have an encounter with God. You see, when you've got an encounter with God, you can't keep quiet. The songwriter says, I said I wasn't going to talk about it, but I couldn't keep it to myself. What the Lord has done for me. You remember in the story when Jesus was still earlier in his ministry, every time he will heal somebody, you say, don't tell anybody. When he opens the eyes of the blind, say, don't tell everybody. Make a cripple to walk, don't tell anybody. That was one instruction. Nobody obeyed. Nobody obeyed. How can you obey such an instruction, even if it's coming from Jesus? Yesterday, you were begging on the street, and Jesus came and opened your eyes. And now you're walking in the street, even with a step. And the people say, are you not the guy? What happened to you? So I've been to Jesus. How can you keep quiet? You were crippled and you could not move. You were being carried. And Jesus came in and made you to be able to walk. And you are in the church, busy dancing, not walking softly in the sanctuary. How do you remain quiet? You have to say to the deacons who are saying, no, we don't dance in church. Remember the story of Peter and John? The man went into the church dancing, celebrating. Because when God has done something for you, you can't keep quiet. Many a times, we keep quiet because we don't have an experience. We don't have an encounter. And if you don't have an encounter, you will be swift, moved by the winds. When this wind comes up here, the church is like this, it's outdated. The church is, they say you must do African spiritualism and all of this nonsense that people are talking about. You know, you must honor your ancestors, you must do all of those things. If you are not grounded, you will be moved. And you will give an excuse to say, I've left the church, but not Christ. If the church belongs to Christ, where are you going? Because remember, it is his church. When you talk about the Sabbath, he says, I am the Lord, even of the Sabbath. He says, I'm the CEO of the Sabbath. I'm the managing director of the Sabbath. So you say, I'm leaving. The part where he says, I am the owner, the Lord of it. Where are you going? To whom are you going to? But as I said, it is many of us who are hurt. Many of us who are discouraged. Also many of us who are not grounded. And an encounter with Jesus makes you grounded. It makes you immovable. The whole church might have said things about you and people are believing it, but when you are grounded, you won't be moved. You are like Mount Zion that cannot be moved. Amen.